problem, we're starting to make some choices or decisions about how we're going to handle this problem and deal with the situation. So we want to leave you with one tool that will help you in your decision making and your choice making. Once you find out what the problem is, how are you going to go about dealing with it? So would you mind trying to figure it out what page it's on? So it is page 7.
That's even better. That's even better. Yes. You sure we can't get a 9?
So we call this tool the double triangle. And it's really complicated. The reason why we call it the double triangle. And the process is pretty simple. You're going to ask 3 questions twice. And this is how it works. Intentional is being outcome focused, correct? So when we solve the problem, we want to look at what the outcome is when we make this decision, so that everything that we do between identifying the problem and communicating the outcome and getting the outcome is very clear. So the first thing we do is make sure that we know what outcome we want to have happen. So we're going to use an example that probably nobody relates to here, which is my child's room is a mess, and the outcome that I want is a clean room. So yeah, we're looking for something totally unrealistic, but for the sake of the exercise, right? So that's the outcome. So now how do we go about this decision-making process of how we're going to get this outcome?
Bribery.
Thank you. So we start with this inner triangle, and we start on this side, and we ask ourselves, what is it? What action are we going to take that will get us to this particular outcome? So let's say that the what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit her down and give her an ultimatum.
Why do you assume it's a girl?
And
Why did we say not take it personally?
so the action that you're going to take is you're going to sit him down and
I don't even know it's a him.
you're going to sit it down.
Sit this child down.
That's right. And you're going to give him an ultimatum. Now, the question of significance is, why would I take that particular action? So why do you think that I would sit it down and give him or him an ultimatum?
Because you tried everything else.
All right. So one why is I've tried everything else and it really hasn't worked. Okay. Now, the why is going to help me understand how am I actually going to do that in real life. And what I'm doing is I am planning this out before I actually have the conversation. Okay? This is the intentional part of this decision making. So here's the outcome. What I'm going to do is give her an ultimatum. The why is because we've had this conversation many times and it hasn't worked. Now, how am I going to do that? He's going to come home from school. I'm going to sit him down. We're going to talk about everything that has gone up to this particular point. It hasn't worked, and therefore my only option left is here's the ultimatum. All right? So this inner triangle is what I'm going to do, why I'm going to do it, and how I'm going to do it. Now we're going to go to the outer triangle. The outer triangle asks this: what could the possible reactions be when I do that? So,
He's going to get upset.
so for the sake of this example, we're going to go through 3 potential scenarios. So what's one? What could one reaction be when I do that?
Okay, Dad, I'll clean the room.
Yeah. All right. So one is rebellion, right? The other is,
Yeah, whatever.
Acquiescence.
right, so,
Exactly.
passive aggressive agreement, right?
Tears.
That's right. And what's the third one?
Negotiation.
Okay.
For capitulation.
Or it may say, oh, I finally got it, but let's not. So the first one is rebel, second is passive aggression agreement, and third is negotiation. Now, the second why becomes extremely important here because it's going to dictate how you're going to deal with that reaction. So let's go to rebellion. Why do you think he might rebel when you do this?
It's his room. It's my room. I can have however I want.
Okay? My room.
That's my house.
Right? What other reason could you anticipate would be the reason why you would get rebellion?
Being told
Yeah,
what
it's
to
worked
do.
before.
Past experience. Okay. Now, when we go to this how, let me ask you this. So we get this rebellion. Well, we've anticipated two reasons why we get the rebellion. One is, hey, it's my room, leave me alone. The second is the past experience that we've had that causes that particular reaction. Now, in each of those cases, would you handle the situation? Would you handle the reaction differently if it was one or the other? Would you handle it differently if the reason was, hey, it's my room, leave me alone? Or would you handle it differently if, through past experience, that was the answer? Would you handle the how, the reaction differently based on this? All right. So here's the basic premise. Why dictates how. The why dictates how. Does that make sense? Right? If you've got a disgruntled member and you determine that the why is that they've just got no satisfaction with 20 people that they've talked to, right? That you may handle that in one way. But if the reason is that they've talked to one person and that one person didn't give them the answer that they're looking for, you're probably going to handle it a different way, correct? So your determination of why is this person reacting in the way that they're reacting is going to dictate how you deal with it. Does that make sense? Now, how would you deal with it if she says, hey, this is my room, leave me alone? In a rebellious way. How would you deal with that?
Make her stay in the room.
Okay, it's your room living in, right? Okay, now, would that tact get you your outcome?
No.
Okay, now you understand why you start with the outcome first. Because as you're intentionally going through this process and you get to this place right here, this is before you do anything, right? You come to this place here and you realize, oops, that's not going to get me to my outcome. You start the process again. It's possible,
Yes.
right? But remember what we said before, that it will work more often than it won't work if you're more intentional and use the process. Right? Will it work all the time? No, it won't. To use this process ahead of time, to be prepared and to be intentional, will more often get you your outcome than if you didn't prepare ahead of time. Does it make sense to see that to be true? Okay. So, scenario, Anita,
Yes.
it put you on the spot, but can you think of a scenario that would be relevant that we can walk through?
Which one? The the situation is you have some members who are dissatisfied with leadership. And they're thinking they should pull away from the chapter and start their own.
Okay. What's the outcome we want?
More realistic.
We
See,
want
I think
big permission.
this truly touches, I think, every district. The
In
outcome.
that scenario, let's get some ideas.
Okay.
In that scenario, we're dissatisfied. What's the outcome we want? Just to practice this process.
Support the retaining
To retain the member.
Right.
All right? So let's say that our outcome is to retain the member.
Would it be or to keep the chapter intact?
For the sake of practice, let's use this just so you understand how to go through the double triangle. All right? Now, so we've got this dissatisfied member. What action are we going to take that we hope will bring about this outcome?
discussion with that member as to what his issues are.
Okay? So we're going to question what the issues are, right? Gather the facts. Why would we do that?
To understand.
Okay? So we're going to gather data, we're going to gather facts. The reason is that we can't really address the issue without fact. Right? We're just dealing with symptoms and emotion and everything else. So now the question is, how are we going to gather the data? What's the specific steps that we're going to use to talk to this member and gather the facts?
Talk to the member, talk to other members, talk to the leadership team, talk to anybody that has some further important video.
Okay?
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Who, what, when, where, why.
Right, all questions when, all right, now, we're out here at this what, and the question is, what could that member's reaction be when we're asking all of these questions to gather the data? And come up with 3 possibilities.
Surprise.
Surprise? About what?
That somebody's actually concerned about their issue.
Ah,
Or defensive.
Surprised about the
Yeah,
concern.
Smack.
Okay. The second is the person becomes defensive.
Yeah.
But they've already explained it to 42 people already. Now.
All right, okay, good. So we'll come back to that. What's the third one?
That they feel empowered.
They quit.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the why. First one is they're surprised about the concern.
That somebody even listened to them.
Okay, why would they feel that way?
That's experience.
That's clear that he's always been ignored.
All right, good. So now the question is, how are we going to deal with that reaction? Seriously?
I'm the first person that's ever taken you serious and sat down to talk to you.
Okay? How are you going to deal with that surprise?
Sure, you're here, try to understand what
I know.
That's the help. Ask them what they would like to see from the outcome. Now that, now that the surprise is worn off and you know that you have my attention, what outcome are you looking for? And again, you may end up dropping back to the beginning of the circle. finding out
Yes,
that-
it's certainly possible. All right, so we got that one. Let's go to the second one. Person comes very defensive of your questioning. Why do you think the person would become defensive?
You can see
Not
pictures
true.
of being the problem, not having a problem.
He's been accused of being the problem. Why else?
What he is saying.
He knows it.
Okay?
He's being called on the carpet for something that maybe he knows he did wrong.
Okay.
Behavior
Likes to stir the
responses.
pot, but doesn't want.
All right, now,
Yeah.
we have 2 whys. The first one is that the person feels accused and they don't think that they're the problem. And the second is that they realize they are the problem and they're finally being called out on it. Right? Now, would your how be different in each case? Right? So again, the premise is why, your estimation of why, dictates how you're going to deal with it. So how would you deal with it if a person feels accused but doesn't agree? How would you deal with that defensiveness?
Try to tone it down that you're not really accusing him. Try to just leave that pot that he doesn't feel that.
Okay.
Well, if he's not part of the problem, then obviously he's a resource as to what could be the solution to the issue. So you need to go ahead and make him your ally, and it's like, problems all this together.
So put your arm around him. Let's figure this problem out together. That whole thing, right? Would you do the same thing if you believe his why is that he's finally been called out and he's sort of embarrassed by it? Would you do the same thing?
No.
No. How would you do it then if you believe this is the why?
Can you just simply agree that you'll knock this crap off?
Absolutely.
And whatever this how is, can you see it's dictated by this why? Right? You're going to perceive what the why is going to dictate. Now, based on these scenarios, do you think you're going to get this outcome?
No.
In the first scenario, yes. The first scenario, yes. The second one, probably.
It does depend on the scenario. So here's the thing. When you use this tool, you're going to go through some of these scenarios using the double triangle. And then you're going to pick the scenario that you believe will best get the outcome that you want, and then you're going to implement that scenario. But you're going to be intentionally prepared because you've done the double triangle, you've anticipated what the reactions might be, and you're ready so that when they come back with whatever they're going to come back with, you're not defensive, you don't go on the reaction, you don't start to get out of control, and now the whole thing blows up in your face.
At what point of the process do you re-examine your outcome? You're going through the entire process and you realize, wow, you're getting the number would be the very worst thing that can happen. You know, to quit is what I want, and I can't get to quit. And here's your check back is going to be the right answer.
Thank you very much. That's the purpose, that's the second purpose of the double triangle. Because you may want this particular outcome, but when you go through the double triangle, you go, based on these scenarios, I don't think it's possible. And you change the outcome and go through the double triangle again. Right? So now you've got 3 potential outcomes and 3 scenarios that you planned for, and you think you're going to feel more confident in sitting down with this person and dealing with the issue.
Okay, I've got to give a testimonial to this because when I first learned it in January, end of January, I thought, well, that's an interesting tool. I hadn't looked at it that way. I was more than questioning the whys and problem solving that way. This, I felt so much more confident going into a situation having done this because I had gone through the process now of what I needed to think, how I needed to think, what questions I needed to be prepared to ask, what outcome I was. It all made so much sense that all of a sudden it was like, okay, this flows. This is easy for me to deal with, and I did not feel, and this is, I think, oftentimes when we go into these scenarios, you feel like you are, the investigator. All of a sudden, you've got your cop hat on and you're going after it. This didn't let me feel that way. This let me into a conversation to go and allow the questions to flow and the situation to unfold. It was probably one of the biggest ahas in the coursework that I went through because I thought it was so easy. And it's something you can do before it ever happens. So often we react. When we started this morning, we were talking react versus response. There is your tool to be able to start to respond when you're caught and all of a sudden you've got, oh my gosh, now what? And running scenarios just like you just did, the scenarios you start to deal with, and you go into rally, when you go into a scenario with members. run some of these just for fun and see what happens. I know that sounds silly, but run it for fun and see what happens. It's amazing what all of a sudden you will start to learn about not only the process, but your thinking and how you actually respond to members. And there's the key, how you respond to members. Because that's what we're here, we are here to serve the membership, but if we're serving them by reacting, it does not work. If we're serving by responding, it does. One of the best tools I've seen. So.
Thanks very much.